There's a technique that costs $0 and burns fat 3 times faster than an hour at the gym. No equipment, no membership, no supplements, no dietary restriction. A technique so simple that your body does all the work automatically the moment you apply it, that a British physician documented and published in 1778, that the New England Journal of Medicine confirmed in a landmark 2009 study that sent the weight loss industry into quiet panic, that elite military units, extreme athletes, and biohackers have used for decades, while the $250 billion diet industry made sure it never reached the mainstream conversation about weight loss. Zero cost, no gym, no pills, your body burning fat around the clock from temperature alone. The global weight loss industry generates over $250 billion annually. Diet programs, meal replacement products, weight loss supplements, gym memberships, and fitness equipment all depend on one belief: that losing body fat requires purchasing a system, a product, or a service. That fat loss is a commercial transaction. A physiological mechanism that burns fat automatically, continuously, and at zero cost through a simple environmental change does not fit inside that commercial model. Which is why no diet company, no supplement brand, and no fitness chain has any financial interest in making it the centerpiece of the conversation about what actually works. This is the story of cold thermogenesis, the fat-burning mechanism that John Hunter documented in 1778, that research at Harvard Medical School confirmed in 2012 activates a type of fat tissue that burns calories continuously, that the New England Journal of Medicine confirmed exists in virtually every adult human body waiting to be activated, and that the weight loss industry has spent 2 centuries ensuring remains outside the mainstream conversation about body composition. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If this knowledge matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. This is where we open the vaults the diet industry paid to seal forever. Now let me take you back to where this all begins. The year is 1778, and a Scottish surgeon named John Hunter is working at St. George's Hospital in London. Hunter is one of the most rigorous scientific minds of the 18th century, a man whose systematic approach to biological research was decades ahead of his contemporaries. He is conducting experiments on the relationship between body temperature, metabolism, and the generation of body heat. Hunter observes that warm-blooded animals, including humans, generate heat internally when exposed to cold environments, not simply by shivering, which is a muscular mechanism, but through a separate process that occurs in specific fatty tissue and produces heat without any muscular movement at all. He documents his observations carefully and publishes them in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society in 1778. Hunter does not have the cellular biology to explain what he is observing. He cannot see the specialized fat cells that are generating the heat. He does not know the biochemical pathway. But he measures the heat output accurately, and he documents the temperature, conditions that trigger it. His observation is scientifically valid and remains so. The cellular explanation for what Hunter observed came 2 centuries later. In 1979, researchers at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden confirmed the existence of brown adipose tissue in adult humans, a type of fat cell fundamentally different from the white fat cells that store energy as body fat. Brown adipose tissue cells contain dramatically higher concentrations of mitochondria than white fat cells. These mitochondria are specialized to burn stored fat and generate heat rather than to produce ATP for muscular energy. Brown fat does not store energy. It burns it continuously in response to cold. The discovery was significant, but the medical establishment's initial response was cautious. Brown fat had been well documented in newborn humans. It is the mechanism that keeps infants warm before they develop the muscle mass to generate heat through shivering. The assumption was that adults lost their brown fat as they matured. The 1979 Swedish research suggested otherwise, but was not yet definitive. Then came 2009, and 3 simultaneous studies published in the New England Journal of Medicine changed the conversation completely. Research teams at Harvard Medical School, Maastricht University in the Netherlands, and the Karolinska Institute in Sweden published independent confirmations that metabolically active brown adipose tissue is present in the majority of adult humans. Not a small amount, not a vestigial remnant, functionally active brown fat capable of burning significant quantities of stored energy in response to cold exposure. The New England Journal of Medicine is not a fringe publication. It is arguably the most respected medical journal on the planet. 3 independent research teams published simultaneously, confirming that cold exposure activates fat-burning tissue in adult humans that the weight loss industry had never mentioned in its $250 billion conversation about how to lose weight. The diet industry went quiet. The research continued without them. Let me show you exactly why this works. Because the biology is specific and the numbers are real. Your body contains 2 fundamentally different types of fat tissue. White adipose tissue is what most people think of as body fat. The soft tissue under the skin and around organs that stores excess energy as triglycerides. White fat is passive. It stores calories and releases them when needed. It does not burn energy on its own. Brown adipose tissue is completely different. Brown fat cells are densely packed with mitochondria, the cellular structures that convert stored energy to heat, or ATP. In brown fat cells, the mitochondria are specialized with a protein called uncoupling protein 1, or UCP1. This protein uncouples the normal energy conversion process, redirecting energy from fat combustion directly into heat generation rather than ATP production. Brown fat burns fat to make heat. That is its sole biological function. When your body detects cold, specifically when the temperature receptors in your skin and core register sustained cold exposure below your thermal comfort threshold, your sympathetic nervous system releases norepinephrine. Norepinephrine directly activates brown adipose tissue, triggering UCP1 and initiating thermogenic fat burning. The energy expenditure of activated brown adipose tissue is substantial. Research published in the journal Cell Metabolism in 2014 measured the metabolic rate of activated brown fat in human subjects during cold exposure. The study found that activated brown adipose tissue can increase total body energy expenditure by up to 15% above baseline. In practical terms, for a person with average metabolic rate, this represents an additional 200 to 300 calories burned per day from cold exposure alone, with no physical activity required. But the story is more significant than the immediate calorie burn. A 2013 study published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation confirmed that regular cold exposure over a period of 4 weeks increased brown adipose tissue volume and activity in adult human subjects. Regular cold exposure does not just activate existing brown fat. It creates more of it. The body adapts to regular cold stimulus by expanding its thermogenic capacity, building a larger and more active brown fat system that burns more energy continuously even when not in active cold exposure. The 2014 research from Maastricht University measured metabolic rates of subjects after 10 days of daily mild cold exposure compared to a control group. The cold exposed group showed a 43% increase in brown fat activity and a measurable increase in their overall metabolic rate at rest. 43% increase in the body's primary fat-burning tissue in 10 days from cold exposure alone at zero cost, published in peer-reviewed research, never mentioned by a diet program. The global weight loss industry generates over $250 billion annually. Diet programs, meal replacement shakes, weight loss supplements, gym memberships, fitness equipment, and surgical weight loss procedures all share one commercial requirement: that body fat cannot be lost without their product or service. That fat loss is complex, difficult, and requires ongoing commercial assistance. A physiological mechanism that burns fat continuously at zero cost through environmental temperature, one that exists in virtually every adult human body and requires nothing to purchase, does not generate commercial revenue. It cannot be packaged, branded, priced, or sold on a subscription model. You cannot patent cold. You cannot charge a monthly fee for lower ambient temperature. You cannot build a $250 billion industry around telling people to be slightly cold for 30 minutes each day. So the industry did not need to actively suppress cold thermogenesis. It simply had no commercial interest in promoting it. No diet company funds research into mechanisms that eliminate the need for diet programs. No supplement brand sponsors content explaining that a free physiological response outperforms their product. No gym chain promotes a technique that reduces the perceived need for gym attendance. The research continued in academic institutions, funded by government health research grants. It was published in journals read by scientists and physicians, and it never reached the commercial content ecosystem that shapes what most people believe about how to lose body fat. The 2009 New England Journal of Medicine papers were significant scientific news. They generated academic citations and follow-up research. They produced no change whatsoever in the commercial messaging of the weight loss industry, because the commercial messaging of the weight loss industry is not designed to share information that reduces its own revenue. The knowledge reached the communities that applied it before it reached the mainstream. Dr. Jack Kruse, a neurosurgeon who began documenting cold thermogenesis protocols for body composition and metabolic health starting in 2011, built a significant online following by explaining the brown fat research to a general audience and documenting personal and patient outcomes from cold exposure protocols. His documented case studies showed consistent body composition improvements in patients following structured cold exposure regimens. Wim Hof, a Dutch athlete who developed a method combining cold exposure and breathing techniques, became internationally known through documented demonstrations of the physiological effects of cold adaptation. A 2014 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences confirmed that subjects trained in Hof's cold exposure method showed measurable autonomic nervous system activation in response to cold that differed significantly from untrained controls. The research confirmed that deliberate cold exposure training produces measurable physiological changes consistent with enhanced thermogenic response. A fitness researcher in Toronto documented a 12-week personal experiment in 2020, adding daily 10-minute cold shower exposure to his routine with no other dietary or exercise changes. His measured body fat percentage decreased by 3.2% over the 12 weeks. His caloric intake and exercise volume were tracked and showed no significant change from his pre-experiment baseline. 3.2% body fat reduction from cold showers alone. No gym, no diet, no supplements, no cost. Here's exactly what to do. You can begin tonight using your existing shower. The core principle. Cold thermogenesis works through sustained mild to moderate cold exposure that activates brown adipose tissue without triggering the extreme stress response of severe cold. The goal is not suffering. It is consistent, manageable cold stimulus applied regularly enough to produce brown fat adaptation. Method 1. Cold shower protocol. Most accessible starting point. No equipment, zero cost. Week 1. Adaptation. End every shower with 30 seconds of the coldest water your shower produces. This is your introduction to cold exposure. The initial discomfort is real but brief. Focus on slow controlled breathing during the cold exposure. Slow exhale through slightly pursed lips. Do not hold your breath. Controlled breathing is what separates productive cold exposure from simple discomfort. Week 2. Extend cold ending to 60 seconds. Note that the sensation becomes more manageable as brown fat adaptation begins. Week 3 and beyond. Extend to 2 to 3 minutes of cold water at the end of each shower. At this point, most people notice they feel warmer for 30 to 60 minutes after the cold exposure. Ends. This is brown fat thermogenesis continuing after the cold stimulus has been removed. The heat you feel is stored body fat being burned. Method 2. Ambient temperature. Reduction, passive and completely effortless. Lower your sleeping environment temperature to between 16 and 19 degrees Celsius. Research published in Diabetes Journal in 2014 measured the effect of sleeping at 19 degrees Celsius versus 24 degrees on brown fat activity in human subjects. After 4 weeks of sleeping at 19 degrees, subjects showed a 42% increase in brown fat volume and a 10% increase in insulin sensitivity. Simply sleeping in a cooler room produced measurable metabolic improvement in 4 weeks. No other change to diet or exercise. Method 3. Cold water. Immersion. For those who want maximum effect. A bath filled with cold water, between 14 and 18 degrees Celsius, maintained for 10 to 15 minutes, produces the strongest brown fat activation of any accessible method. The large surface area of body immersed in cold water maximizes the thermogenic stimulus. Begin with 5 minutes and build over 2 weeks to 15 minutes. Maintain controlled breathing throughout. Never immerse alone. Have someone present during cold water immersion sessions until you are fully adapted to the response. Daily practice. Recommendation. Minimum effective protocol. Cold shower ending, 2 to 3 minutes daily. Sleep temperature, 17 to 19 degrees. Consistency over 4 weeks, minimum. Expected results at 4 weeks with consistent. Practice. Measurable increase in brown fat activity. Improved metabolic rate at rest, improved cold tolerance, and typically measurable reduction in body fat percentage without dietary changes. Important safety. Note, people with cardiovascular conditions, Raynaud's disease, or cold urticaria should consult a physician before beginning cold exposure protocols. Begin gradually and never force exposure beyond your comfort level. The protocol is designed to be uncomfortable but never dangerous. Stop immediately if you experience chest pain, difficulty breathing, or numbness in extremities beyond normal cold sensation. John Hunter stood in his laboratory in London in 1778 and measured something that the $250 billion weight loss industry of 2024 has no commercial interest in explaining to you. He measured heat coming from tissue that was not moving, fat that was burning itself to keep the body warm. He wrote it down because that is what scientists do with observations that are real. The researchers at Harvard, Maastricht, and the Karolinska Institute, who published simultaneously in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2009, were not trying to disrupt an industry. They were documenting what they found in the human body. What they found was a fat-burning mechanism that exists in virtually every adult, requires nothing to purchase, and responds to an environmental condition that has been freely available since the first cold morning in human history. $250 billion in annual weight loss industry revenue depends on you believing that body fat cannot be lost without a program, a product, or a system sold to you by someone who profits from your difficulty. It depends on you not knowing that your body contains tissue whose only function is burning fat. It depends on you never asking what activates that tissue and whether the answer might be free. The answer is cold. The cold is outside your window right now. The shower in your bathroom runs cold for free. The knowledge is here. Subscribe and share this video. Every share reaches someone who will step out of the weight loss industry's commercial cycle and into a physiological reality that has been documented since 1778. Every subscription keeps this channel opening the vaults the diet industry thought were sealed forever.